Hello once again, witchy people. Welcome back to my front room, otherwise known as the lounge, but we're not posh. So today's going to be a kind of weird video because I wasn't too sure what the subject was going to be. And as we all know, I do need a subject, or I tend to ramble on about all sorts. So this may end up being something like that. It was suggested to me that I do a witch in lockdown, to explain maybe how some coping mechanisms by being, with being locked down and being inside the home and not being able to go out and socialise. But I'm not coping very well, so I can't give advice on that sort of thing. I am going out for walks, but to be honest, it's more of a time for contemplative thinking than anything else. I'm walking the dog and I'm just sat there thinking, what's it going to be like when we have a new normal? What's it going to be like? Because the pandemic is here. COVID-19 is always going to be here. We're going to have to be inoculated and vaccinated every year, I suspect. And it's going to change our lives. Well, it has changed our lives completely, but even when the vaccine is more widely available and more people have the vaccine, it's still not going to be like it was. It's never going to be like it was again. So I tend to think a lot about things like that. And so you see, it's, I don't have any answers. As a witch to a witch, I don't have any answers. And I don't think any of us do, to be honest. I don't think any of us really have an answer to what life is going to be like, how everything will change exactly. But there are some things that will always remain the same, we hope. So we will always have weather. We will always have, but it's not going to be the same, maybe. Global warming, environmental damage, who knows what's going to happen. But anyway, I was thinking about some things that my father used to talk about, and my grandfather also. And there's a saying in Spain and a very similar one in Portugal, which goes something, the Spanish one goes something along the lines of flowers bloom in winter means an empty granary in the year, later on in the year. And I think the Portuguese saying is flowers blooming in January, empty cellar in summer. So basically it means that if you have flowers blooming and a lot of life in January coming from the ground early, it doesn't bode well for later on in the year, because the plants are going to basically use up all their nutrients blooming too early. Whereas there is an old English saying that says mist and cold in winter and January, lots of corn stalks in summer. Which is, another one of those things. So I've got two drinks here and I don't know which one to have. I'm going to have this one actually. This is cranberry and blood orange tea. I think it's a Twinings one, and it's lovely. It really is absolutely gorgeous. I don't like sugar in my tea. And I'm not very English. I don't drink a lot of tea. I do like herbal teas, but I don't drink black tea very often because I don't like milk in my drinks. I'm not very English at all, am I? But I do like tea. I like herbal teas. I don't like green tea, but this one's lovely. And I say it's cranberry and blood orange. So, what else? Other than the tea that I'm drinking. This is a mishmash. It's really difficult to try and get some normality back into your practice when there isn't a normal surrounding you. And there are things like, okay, yes, I didn't burn a Yule log this year, but that's not really that unusual. I didn't, well, last year now, I suppose, because I have a representation of the Yule log in the tree that I have in my home. So that's not too bad. But things like not being out, not going out to the forest to gather haws and berries and that's haws, Haws, not horse. Don't gather up horses. Yeah, it's been quite strange. It's been, yes, I did go out and I did get the Yule log. I got some beautiful lichen and moss. But it's, when am I going to be able to get back to that kind of normal? Because this is part of my practice. I'm guessing for an awful lot of people that aren't solitary and have more of a coven situation that's not an online coven, that's going to take some getting used to. When is that going to be back to normal? When is that going to be able to return to a more normal feel? I think we, in some ways, many of us are kind of hoping that it's all going to be back to as it once was before, but it's not. I don't think it will. And there has to be a certain amount of acceptance. I mean, the thing is, things change. Always. No one practices now the way they would have done 400 years ago, because it's a different time. It's a different era. We are different people culturally, mentally. We're allowed to be sort of different in many other ways. So if as a spirituality or a religion or a way of life, we can't, as pagans, as witches, evolve and change, we will, and I've said this before, stagnate and die. And maybe this is, in a way, a test of our spirituality, a test of the faith that we have in our way of life. Because it is going to change. And yes, I think this has been quite a big change in the same way that computers were a big change. And it opened up the world to a lot of things. This pandemic, I think, is closing us up more again. If you can hear a strange whistling, I'm so sorry. It's my computer fan going, and the microphone picks up all sorts. Lost my train of thought completely. See? Absolutely. Can't you tell I'm blonde underneath all this hair dye? Well, more grey now, actually. Yeah, so we have to adapt our paths to the way of life we're living and the changes that the world brings upon us. I mean, going back 2,000 years ago, I could grow my own grapes. Living here, probably actually before then, maybe 1,600 years ago, I could easily grow my own grapes living in the south of England. I don't think they grow that well now. Though my brother does grow grapes. And technology and advancements in the way that we do everything have allowed us to add so much more to our practices. But as I said, this pandemic is definitely shrinking our practices, I think, quite a lot, because we are having to become much more less dependent upon others, except for maybe online. So, and it's just suddenly occurred to me, I'm sat here drinking cranberry and blood orange tea. Cranberries and blood oranges are not something that are quite prevalent, you know, they're not a natural item in the country I live in. Whereas rosehip tea, I suppose I could drink rosehip tea. That would be okay. I could make my own rosehip syrup. Thyme. Oh, thyme. I'm going to make some violet and thyme tea. That's nice. Obviously not right now because I don't have violets and thyme. Well, I do have thyme. I don't have any violets growing. I didn't have any winter violets this year. So I think maybe, as I'm sat here talking, it's kind of occurring to me maybe that instead of thinking of the pandemic and COVID-19 as a force that really has inhibited the way we practice and the way we live, maybe it should be thought of as an opportunity to think more about self-sustainment, for being self-supporting in the way we practice. Maybe. And thinking about things that we can do for ourselves, like make our own tea and therefore get our own spell ingredients and things like that. And think about what we can grow and do ourselves. I mean, for violets, violas and thyme, you just need a windowsill. You don't even need anything special. You just need a windowsill. And, you know, get them cold every now and then. So I think maybe we can use this as an opportunity to open up our practices to being more personal, doing more for ourselves. Do myself out of a business here, aren't I? Saying that I haven't actually opened up my shop. My shop has not reopened, and it won't reopen until at least March. Mainly because I don't want to put a burden on the post office. I think we have enough of a burden on our infrastructure as it is at the moment, and we don't. I feel guilty opening my shop, but past March, when hopefully things will ease up more, I will reopen. I will, because I've got such a lot of stock and things that I want to share, so I will do. But going back to this, the whole idea of that maybe by closing our practice, by making our practice less open and not being able to get out there, we are going to make it more personal. We can each make our path and the way that we witch, the way that we follow our paths, so much more personal to us, and be more self-sustaining in our paths, be more doing things for ourselves and figuring out things for ourselves, because we've still got the internet. We can check up on each other and ask each other questions and all sorts, but you know, we can do more for ourselves. And although we still need each other, that self-reliance, that way of sustaining ourselves could be a really good thing. And in that way, it can open up our practice emotionally so brilliantly. Anyway, that was it, really. A few little proverbs and old sayings from Spain, Portugal and England, I guess. And thinking about how, you know, being a witch in lockdown is changing us. All of us. And I think that's regardless of what country we're in, because it has affected the whole world. It's affected us all in one way or another. In many ways, in fact, not just one way or another, but in many, many ways. And maybe we should see the change as a good thing. It's adding a different aspect to our paths and our spirituality that maybe we need, because it's so easy to become complacent in how we live. Maybe this is just a slight kick up the jacksie that we all need. So there we go. I will be back very soon. I'm going to try and upload at least once a week, and I will try desperately not to let you all down. Thank you for watching, and I'm going to try and catch up on some videos. I'm so way behind, and get some proper videos sorted out. And I know I've got a habit of doing this lately, and it must be so annoying. I'm sorry. Yeah, so a few more videos about practices, you know, my practice, and sort of like just ideas, like perhaps the violet and thyme tea. And I've got a wonderful honey and thyme cough syrup, which is amazingly good, which I may share. Okay, that's it. Thank you so much for watching, witchy people. I will be back very soon. Bye for now.